For Donald Trump, it's crashing polls, crashing stock, crashing mind, crashing GOP. Not looking very good for him right now, but crashing things, destroying things, bankrupting things. That's really Donald Trump's life story. Failing, losing, but always being a con artist to try to rip people off and pick their pocket along the way. But the pro-democracy community isn't going to take any of that. And collectively, we are calling it out. We are exposing it. And we are letting people know what is up. On the other hand, to Donald Trump's losing, failing, and crashing, you've got steady President Joe Biden. President Biden, guess what? He's not posting in all caps. He's not posting QAnon memes. He's not whining. He's just overseeing a booming economy. He's overseeing record-setting stock market closes every single day, except, of course, for the Trump stock. It's like the only stock that's just like absolutely tanking as the stock market sets records every day. You've got President Biden overseeing important immigration policy, executive orders in the absence of congressional action because Donald Trump ordered his Republican goons to block any bipartisan efforts to deal with comprehensive immigration reform. But President Biden also making sure that there is a compassionate policy when it comes to DACA, when it comes to the spouses of immigrants who are here as well. We'll talk about all of this and more. And of course, we got to also talk about that bombshell report from the New York Times about how the chief judge in the Southern District of Florida, the boss who Judge Eileen Cannon reports to, or is not required to follow what the chief judge says, but the chief judge, the senior judges are supposed to have a lot of sway and a lot of power. Well, we're now learning that the chief judge in the Southern District of Florida, who I might add was a George W. Bush appointee, a law and order, actual conservative judge, told Judge Cannon when the Trump case got assigned not to take the case and to recuse herself. But Judge Cannon refused, and the rest is MAGA history right now. And we've been giving you all the updates with Judge Cannon and her corruption. But it's interesting to note that multiple judges, including the chief judge, told her, you shouldn't be taking this case. Unfortunately, our federal judiciary is built on good faith, but like all things, Donald Trump is showing that you can't do that. You can't have it. All the good faith stuff and traditions and norms, it's thrown out of the window when it comes to Trump and his MAGA surrogates like Judge Eileen Cannon. So let's break it down, folks. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Brett and Jordy. How you guys doing?
Doing good. Are you telling me Judge Cannon's not exactly on the up and up, Ben? I would have never have guessed it, judging by everything that she's done so far. I'm doing good. We got some new polls out. I'm not really a polls person, but I'm a fan of a Trump meltdown, and it certainly stirred a new Trump meltdown, which is always good to see. And I'm just feeling positive momentum across the board. I'm seeing a lot of people kind of out there getting involved, understanding the stakes of this election, regardless of party. I'm seeing Republicans standing up, independents standing up, Democrats standing up, and saying that they've had enough of this craziness. So, I think anytime you get a reaction like that from Trump, it just reemphasizes that exact point that Donald Trump is completely unfit to do anything, quite frankly, but especially be president of the United States. Jordy, it's great to see you as always. What's new on your end?
Oh, super pumped for the show today. And yeah, just as Trump continues to fall down this Trump rabbit hole of becoming more and more hinged every single minute, the juxtaposition next to President Biden couldn't be more clear. Joe Cool, Ben. That's President Biden's new nickname. I don't know if you knew that, but Joe Cool, man. Cool, calm, and collective. Just he's the leader that you just want right now. It's just so drastic to see the differences between the two.
If you're thinking about it this way, I think the more data, the more info, the longer the speeches, the more people see of what President Biden is actually doing, that becomes a net positive because it's actually not talked about a lot, right? The more people actually see what Donald Trump has been saying and doing, which we've been covering here because it just ain't normal, the more people are repulsed by it. So that's an important dynamic that I think exists. The more they discover about Biden, no matter what political party you're affiliated with, I think the more you're going to find out about the infrastructure plan with 40,000 infrastructure projects, even more than that right now, that are taking place across the country as a result of the Infrastructure Act. I think people will learn about the PACT Act and how there's been over 1 million claims of our veterans that have been processed, life-saving care that our veterans would never have received, to the tune of 1 million claims. People who are exposed to burn pits, like President Biden's son, Beau, who passed away from that type of exposure. 1 million claims because of the PACT Act, which was passed by President Biden. More people will see things like bringing the CHIPS Act, bringing the semiconductor industry back here to the United States, and the record investments in our semiconductor industry. You know, one of the problems that we realized during COVID, and one of the big economic hits is that we took, is that a lot of the semiconductors were made overseas, overwhelmingly made overseas. And so because of the difficult in transport as a result of COVID, that had a massive negative impact on the economy because we were so dependent on semiconductors being manufactured abroad. So the fact that America is now leading the world in the semiconductor industry, or how about the fact that President Biden broke OPEC, the OPEC oil cartel in the Middle East that was trying to artificially inflate the price of a barrel of oil to over $100 by suppressing the supply. Biden's like, bet, we'll use strategic reserves that will sell high, we'll push the cost per barrel down because we'll flood the market with American oil as America drills more now than it's ever done before, while President Biden, though, was actually paying attention to climate change. Then when the price per barrel goes down, then we will refill the supply of our strategic reserves, thereby making massive profits from selling high and buying low, while also bringing down the price of oil per barrel and breaking OPEC. Think about that. So the more people learn about President Biden doing things like capping the price of insulin, and the fact that the price of insulin would not only have been capped on seniors, the caps on other medication would not only have been capped amongst certain groups. President Biden was trying to bring that to all Americans. But guess who blocked it? The MAGA people who are blocking that. The more America, I just think, sees that data and they see those things are just appealing. And to me, those things are not democratic things. Like that should... Why? Who's like, we want to pay more money for medication?
Such a lefty. You're such a lefty, man.
More money for medication. Don't cap insulin. Don't cap prescription drug prices. Like what? Like that's actual. And when you watch what happens at the Trump events, the same way there are so many investors who are getting hoodwinked by Donald Trump, right? Who are falling for that con right there. You know, if you go and you ask some of these people at the Trump event, like, why do they support him? The things that they're actually talking about are Biden policies that Trump prevented. I can't tell you how many times I see the people waiting online who have been so beaten up by their MAGA governors and MAGA policies that they feel downtrodden and they've been beat up. So they've been trained to accept breadcrumbs. And so when Trump comes into town and throws them pizza or throws them paper towels and says, I alone can fix it, they believe that crap because their agency has been taken away by MAGA policies. And so, again, fundamentally, I don't think that that's even like that should be a political thing. I just think we need to come together as a country and call this out. But with all the propaganda out there, it is, I think, significant that I think Americans are getting it. They understand the stakes. And I think the conviction of Trump, in addition to the fact that he's a convicted felon and shattered all the media narratives that he was never going to be convicted, I think it also made people pay attention. Go, whoa, 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 we've got an election coming up. We got to focus on this. Wait a minute. He's talking about how he'd rather be electrocuted than eaten by sharks. And he's talking about, fictitious conversations that he's having in his own mind with Hannibal Lecter, a cannibal movie character. Like what? Wait a minute. He changed our national anthem and he replaced it with a J6 choir anthem and he calls them hostages. Wait a minute. He's saying free the hostages, Joe, referring to the Proud Boys. Like what? What's he doing? Huh? That's what they're doing. And people that should have been in a healthy media environment. That should have been conveyed the way we've been trying to convey that every day. But people are learning now. Better late than never. Always better late than never. So if you're joining the pro-democracy community, welcome. We still have a lot of work to do, though, as well. And I don't want to get why we don't like talking about the polls is I don't want to get complacent. I also don't think the methodology behind polls are great. The one reason that I want to, and we actually have data sets from the primaries that cut against all the media narratives. There's been like a 20% protest vote against Donald Trump in all the primaries we've seen so far, when the media was saying that's what was going to happen with President Biden, but it's happening with Donald Trump. So,
and if only there were a bunch of special elections that went a certain direction that may tell us a little bit of something about how voters feel about the issues right now.
If only.
But here's the thing. The reason that I will cover the Fox poll is just because it's just pissing Donald Trump off so much. And he's just posting the craziest stuff about it. Also, just think about this. If there's another reason to be supportive of President Biden, honestly, would you want to wake up? And this is to be a non-positive thing. Like, do you want to wake up every day with Cap's post of just someone whining every single day, like Donald Trump did after the poll showed that President Biden is now the front runner in the race? So Donald Trump posted, "Nobody can ever trust Fox News, and I am one of them, with the weak and ineffective rhino, Paul Ryan, on its board of directors. He's a total lightweight, a failed and pathetic Speaker of the House, and a very disloyal person. Romney was bad, but Paul Ryan made him look worse. As a team, they never had a chance. Rupert and Lachlan, get that dog off your board. You don't need him. All you need is Trump. Make America great again." So when I say this shouldn't be a partisan thing and that MAGA is its own extreme cult entity, just take that post. Paul Ryan is not some rando person on the board of Fox. Paul Ryan was the former Republican Speaker of the House. He was previously, not that long ago, right? Like in the past 5 to 10 years, he was the most powerful Republican in the United States of America.
I'm starting to see a pattern of anybody who holds that position.
Right?
They don't last.
Also, wait, really quick, going back, this guy hates dogs. I've never seen someone talk about use dog in such a more demeaning way than Donald Trump.
Get that dog off your board.
It's just a weird, nobody even really speaks like that.
I think
stuff like this.
And speaking of the way Trump speaks, I think Trump has actually benefited in many ways. I think ultimately there will be an analysis at some point, and I think kind of deplatforming Trump, so to speak, had a lot of positive elements and decreased the spread of disinformation tremendously. So I don't want to get that twisted. But I think also deplatforming Trump kind of shielded him from a lot of the eyes and ears of a lot of folks. And so people, you have to remember, this was actually a big issue during the 2020 campaign. Biden had that genius ad about Donald Trump's tweets, if you remember, where it was like a mouth that was speaking and then it gets quiet. And it was the ad was like, do you really want to hear this every single day? Basically what Ben just said. And people have been shielded by it. Now we've seen it. We've been reporting it. And a lot more people are tuning in now and looking at this. But I think that a lot of people don't realize how deranged Donald Trump is. And now they're finally tuning in and seeing that. And not only how deranged he is, but how far he has even fallen since the previous election. And every time he steps on stage now and he tells a story about getting eaten by sharks or being electrocuted in the water or speaking to Hannibal Lecter or all these various things, it's a shock to people, even though they're things that we heard a year ago, because now they're tuning in. Now it's in their face. Now you have corporate media beginning to pick this stuff up, running stories about it. And all of a sudden you have people going, oh, whoa, okay. Oh, all right. No, I don't want this. Like, I can't handle this. You know, it was something we said about, you know, kind of Ron DeSantis during the primary. There was a pattern, right? And it was the more folks got to know Ron DeSantis around the country, it almost seemed like the worse he did. He spent all this time in New Hampshire. His poll numbers went down the longer he spent there, the more money he spent there. And I think folks are having a similar reaction right now to Donald Trump. The more they see him, and I'm not talking about the MAGA cultists who go to these rallies, but the more normal people see him out there, the more they are reminded of why they hated him in the first place and why they voted against him in the first place. And so when Trump has that visceral reaction to a Fox poll and he freaks out and he does messages like this, it's actually like a cycle of like self spiraling in a way, right? He is reiterating the exact points that made people change their mind in such a drastic way over these past few months.
Do you guys know what the kids are saying these days? The ick. You guys know what the ick is?
I've heard of.
It's like a turnoff. It's like when people are like, oh. So like the more time Ron DeSantis spent with people, he gave people the ick. The more times Donald Trump opens his mouth or does one of these tweets, he gives people the ick, and it reminds them of exactly why they voted against him in 2020. And it's really remarkable. This is why I'm so excited for the debates next week, because now all of a sudden you're going to have President Biden v. Donald Trump on stage together. And we say this a lot here. When President Biden can speak to the American people unfiltered, get out his opinion before Fox News and the New York Post could do all the cheap fakes, right? And edit the clips. Overwhelmingly, President Biden's message resonates with the American people because it's a message of hope. It's a message of positivity and just hardworking Americans versus Donald Trump, who really can't even string together sentences at this point. So when you could put that side by side before, you know, social media gets to edit clips and throw them out there, I mean, the American people are just going to be staring at that, and it's going to be up for them to decide who they want to be the next president.
Look, you got to stand up to a bully. You got to stand up to a wannabe authoritarian. I think a lot of the ick from DeSantis and a lot of the ick from all of the others who were seeking that nomination is that they tried to position themselves still as members of the Trump cult. So they wouldn't say anything negative about him, and they would praise him in a very kind of odd way. And you can tell from the voters, they wanted somebody to go out there and actually be a fighter and push back on him. And DeSantis didn't do it. Nikki Haley didn't do it. None of the people did it because they were afraid of losing the MAGA base. But the MAGA base has been able to grow in power because of this view of the inevitability of the MAGA base. And no one's standing up to them other than the pro-democracy community, which is now Democrats, independents, and mainstream conservatives who are standing up to them. And that's what makes Donald Trump live it. Again, Paul Ryan, I wanted to check the date because, you know, with history feels like a lot of things have happened in a very short period of time. So that's why I was like, was it 5 or 10 years ago? It's 5 years ago. So in 2019 was when Paul Ryan left the speakership. He was the speaker for several years, the most powerful Republican at that time. And Donald Trump in the Post is calling him weak, ineffective, a lightweight, a failure, pathetic, disloyal, and calls him a dog. Get that dog off of your board. Jordy, to your point too, like dog is man's best friend. So it's awful. It's very telling that Donald Trump like always attacks dogs. And like, I did a whole video on this, I think as well, where Donald Trump was like, and you'll get put down like a dog, or you'll be a coward like a dog. And like dogs aren't cowardly. Like, and dogs don't even behave in the way that Donald Trump claims that dogs do. But I can go in a whole nother tangent there. Donald Trump also posted, Fox News polls are always the worst for me. They have been from the beginning and always will be. I'm not sure that's an accurate statement. And then all of like the Trump MAGA supporters post stuff like this, like Donald Trump writing on Paul Ryan's face, TDS, and like Fox is a sellout, because they just follow whatever Donald Trump says. And that's why
this is like second grade stuff, right? Like writing on Paul Ryan's head.
But this is all of what Trump's social media thing is. It's Trump posting, and then quite literally like second grade bullying, wannabe fascist memes and QAnon memes. Like, that's all it is. Like, no wonder. What was the last data? It was like under 10 million users in a month, like 7 million users in a month or something like that. So
that's horrible,
right. It's like in an entire month, less people were using Truth Social than watched MeidasTouch in a 48-hour period. Yeah. Just think about that stat right there.
Stat. That's a good stat.
That's and then there's more.
I think that must mean we're worth $80 bajillion. $80
bajillion. And then Trump posted, the latest Fox News poll is trash. They use the bias, Democratic leaning, blah 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 blah. More whining over and over again. And then he goes and attacks Jimmy Fallon. Can anyone imagine being critiqued by rating star of Jimmy Fallon, the bumbling, stumbling hostess? I'm not sure if that's like a anti-gay thing. I'm like, what's he calling her, girl? It's a homophobic thing. That single-handedly reduced the Tonight Show to ashes. I mean, it's just like Then there's the post with the Constitution hugging him and Jesus on his shoulders. Like, which
just imagine if President Biden just like attacked Conan. Was like, that Conan is not funny.
Yeah, like, it's beyond even belief. And it would be a news story nonstop. But I'll dig into the details of the poll, the Fox poll, because we haven't actually said what the poll says.
Good idea.
But I think it's an important data point to present the actual data of this poll that's driving Donald Trump insane. So Biden's leading in the new Fox poll 50-48 in the two-way race, and he's also leading by 2 in the three-way poll. RFK has just completely kind of petered out and crashed at this point, and is kind of running out of money and isn't doing very well. A lot of the shift is driven by independent voters. I mean, look, this swing is actually astonishing. In March, Trump was up with the same Fox poll with independents 51% to 37%. Now in June, Biden up 52% to 43%. That's a 23-point swing towards Biden. And when you kind of dig under the surface and you look at also what the voters care about, I think it bodes very well for Biden, and the shifts bode well for Biden. And I hate polls, as we say. I could say it all day, but I do like trends. I like trend lines, right? So here are the top issues that voters told Fox that they care about. And this was also stuff that Trump, if we go back to that message from before, that Trump was freaking out about. He says that also Trump said, the number one issue to this country is not protecting democracy, because the Fox poll said that the number one issue on voters' minds is the future of democracy. By the way, this is something that continues to come up over and over and over again. It comes up in all the special elections. It came up in the midterms. Every single time the media starts running stories that Biden's focusing on the wrong things, that no one cares about democracy, and then elections happen or these polls come out and people say, no, we actually care about democracy, because democracy is a catch-all for kind of all of our freedoms that are being taken away by these MAGA Republicans. 66% said the economy is extremely important to them. 58% said stability and normalcy is important to them. 52% said immigration is important. 52% said healthcare is important. 47% said abortion is important. 45% said guns are important. And then when you dig in to the numbers there, you see that Biden's numbers on these key issues have grown a lot. You see on the economy, Trump is up 51 to 46 in this poll, but Trump lost 4 points from the last poll, and Biden went up 4 points in this poll on the economy. Immigration, this should send warning signals to the Trump camp. Trump 53, Biden 44. Trump lost 3 points from the last Fox poll. Biden gained 3 points on the issue of immigration, which is Trump's arguably his biggest issue. Now, standing up to elite interests, Biden leads Trump 49-47. On healthcare, Biden gained 2 points and is up 54-44. On stability and normalcy, Biden leads Trump 50-47. I can't believe it's that close. Abortion, Biden leads 55 to Trump, and he gained 3 points over from the last poll over Trump there. On climate change, Biden 58 to Trump 38. Biden gaining 2 points from the last poll. On the future of democracy, Biden 52, Trump 46. So you see on those issues that are the most important issues, even on this Fox poll, you have Biden leading many of those top issues on voters' mind. And I think when people start, I think this will continue along this trend. You never know what's going to happen, but I think this trend will continue. And I think as we continue to see, these things sort of take shape, we will see, we'll see Biden's numbers tick up, and also we're going to see like natural improvements in the economy and across all these issues. So the last 5 national polls that have been released, also, we're talking about trends here, right? Last 5, Biden leads in all of the last 5 polls nationally. And the folks at Split Ticket, who do a really great job with data. I don't know if you guys ever follow Split Ticket at splitticket.org. Phenomenal job. They put together a chart showing what they call the conviction bump, which is after Donald Trump was convicted, the change in state polls, which is something worth checking out also. And you could see here what that looks like. You see how before polling, how Trump was leading in the averages, before the conviction, Trump was leading in the averages, and how nationally now Biden is leading in the averages. Michigan, Wisconsin, Trump was leading in the averages according to 538 before the conviction. Now Biden is leading in the averages. Now Biden has work to do in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, North Carolina, according to this, but all those also trending towards Biden. And you could see the trend lines here. If you look to the right of this chart, you see the swing. Biden in every single state gaining ground on Trump and leading in the average and leading in Michigan and Wisconsin, according to these 538. Then when you look at a place like Pennsylvania, it's statistically tied. Trump's up by 0.2 now. He was up by 2.5 a few weeks ago. And so this is all really good data for Biden. And these polls, they're going to shift. They're going to go back and forth. I mean, it's what polls do. They'll probably swing in Trump's direction a little. They'll swing in Biden's. There's going to be, it'll be a rocky road as we continue on. And then we'll see things take shape as we get to, past the conventions and as we get into by election time. And by October, I think we're going to see a lot of people sort of consolidate behind the candidates, understanding the stakes of what's going on, because that's when everybody's really going to be tuning in.
I think it'll be very clear. It'll be very clear what's happening as we go into next week, where the debate is going to be taking place, assuming Donald Trump doesn't back out. Already you have everybody, all of Trump's surrogates going on Fox and saying that it's going to be rigged. You have Hannity attacking CNN, which basically just sounded like Hannity attacking himself. There's state-run North Korea-style propaganda that does anything for their preferred candidate, and they're not even really a media network. It's like he's talking about himself and with Donald Trump, and then at the same time he brings on guests like Lara Trump, Donald Trump's daughter-in-law, who co-chairs the RNC, and they go, the reason that President Biden is likely going to win the debate is he's going to be on drugs. He's going to be taking Provigil and Adderall and other performance-enhancing drugs. And then you have Don Jr. on his own podcast bringing on Trump's doctor, Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who Trump called Dr. Ronnie Johnson when Trump keeps talking about getting administered dementia tests from Dr. Ronnie Jackson.
Well, we made a video about that, Ben, huh?
We made a whole video about that, but then they go, yeah, it seems that they're going to put Biden on Provigil, and like he gives a list of like all of the kind of pill mill drugs that were discovered that were being administered in the White House when Trump was in office. But just think of disgracing the office. But just think about that even for a second. Like when Trump was in office, we now know through a Department of Defense internal investigation of the White House that the White House was turned into an actual pill mill with zero oversight, where they were giving out like Provigil, 4,108 like tabs just in a very short period of time, fentanyl patches, ketamine, Versed, which is the date rape drug, like other hard drugs were being passed out. Why didn't all these fentanyl patches in the White House? I mean, just think, and that's not a bigger story than it is. I don't know, we're going to keep that on your radar here on the MeidasTouch Network. I'm going to keep bringing that up. We've got a lot to discuss on the show. I also want to mention one of the new YouTube accounts that we've launched in partnership with Michael Cohen. Already has 10,000 subscribers in the first 48 hours. Think about that. That's pretty impressive growth right there. It's at the Michael Cohen Show. YouTube.com/at the Michael Cohen Show. Subscribe there for free. Cohen's having a ton of fun with it, and we continue to expand our offerings here on the MeidasTouch Network. Thanks to your support, thanks to the support of our pro-democracy sponsors as well. Let's hear from them, shall we? I know from a lot of the emails that you send me that a lot of you watching and listening are entrepreneurs. You run your own business, and you know I run a business too, the MeidasTouch Network. So I know how hard it is to manage your numbers, manage the trends in the market, and budget everything. Your business gets to a certain size and the cracks start to emerge. Things you used to do in a day are now taking a week. You have too many manual processes and you don't have one source of truth. If this is you, you need to know these three numbers: 37,000, 25, and 1. Okay, 37,000. That's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down costs. And 1, because your business is one of a kind. So you get a customized solution for all of your key performance indicators, KPIs, in one efficient system with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need to grow all in one place. The power of having all the information in one place to make better decisions and the unprecedented offer NetSuite is providing has been a game changer for us here at MeidasTouch, and I think it will also be a major game changer for you and your business. Right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance absolutely free at netsuite.com/Meidas. That's netsuite.com/Meidas, netsuite.com/Meidas to get your own KPI checklist. That's netsuite.com/Meidas. Check it out.
Hey everyone, Brett here, your resident Meidas coffee guy. Have you ever felt like the coffee you make at home is just missing something? Trade Coffee is changing the way you experience coffee at home. Trade curates a wide variety of coffees from the best small batch specialty roasters in the US and makes personalized recommendations based on what you like or want to try. The coffee is roasted to order and ships to you within 48 hours. Trade Coffee has completely transformed my days. I took their short quiz, told them exactly what kind of coffees I enjoy, and they've matched me with some amazing roasts. One of my favorites was the single origin blend sourced from Kenya that I received last week with incredible notes of brown sugar and citrus. Every bag that I've received is a 10 out of 10. The coffee from Trade is so fresh and it's so convenient to never have to worry about running out of coffee because I always know my next bag is going to be shipped right to my door. And you know, when it comes to coffee, I would only vouch for the absolute best. Whether you're into hot or iced coffee, dark roasts, espressos, or cold brew, Trade has you covered. Plus, coffee from Trade makes a great gift. Give Trade a try this summer. Right now, they're offering 30% off your first order when you visit drinktrade.com/Meidas and subscribe. That's drinktrade.com/Meidas for 30% off your subscription order. One more time, drinktrade.com/Meidas. MEIDAS.
Let's go, y'all. Shout. Are you drinking some Trade coffee right now, Brett?
Drink Trade.
See, that's what I'm saying. We stand behind our sponsors, folks. Like Trade Coffee, fabulous. Just love me some Trade Coffee. Brett, you love Trade Coffee.
It's the best, honestly. I have very high standards. I am what one may refer to as a coffee snob, perhaps. And seriously, every single bag I get is like the best. It's perfect, freshly roasted, sent right away. And I drink a lot of coffee, and so I'm always worried about running out. But every time I'm like, oh no, I'm running low. New one right at the door.
Easy, convenient, and delicious. The link is right there in the description of the YouTube and the audio. Go click it, use the discount code, let them know we sent you. And I just heard back from our folks at NetSuite. The last NetSuite spot broke the record of link clicks to get to their website and amount of time stayed on the site. So definitely click that link right now. Let's see if we could break it again, because I like when they call me and they're like, I'm so impressed. Like, this just doesn't happen. So go ahead, click those links, helps us, and just let's keep going. Ben, where to next?
Before we took the ad break, I talked about what Hannity was saying about the debate on CNN, how it's going to be rigged. I described what Hannity said, and I described it as the ultimate projection. It seems like Hannity is quite literally talking about himself right here in Fox. But let me just show it to you so you know that I'm not exaggerating at all, and you can see for yourself.
All right, we are only 8 days away from the first presidential debate, and I think it is past time for the moderators, fake Jake Tapper on fake news CNN, fake Dana Bash, to get their network in check. Because right now, we are witnessing North Korea levels of nothing but outright propaganda. And as you can see, they're not doing journalism. They lie. They say they're journalists. No, they're not. They're state-run media. They're certainly not holding truth to power. The state-run media is simply repeating White House talking points, all in what is a desperate attempt to defend their chosen candidate.
Also, you have Fox pre-spinning a poor Donald Trump.
Just unbelievable. Sorry. It's just Hannity's not looking great also, I gotta say.
They are all looking terrible.
Trump has sucked the soul out of all of them.
There's
right?
a real aura of desperation, and also they look exhausted trying to defend all of the
you see, I wish I had these clips too. Maybe we'll make like a little montage of this. But in that one episode also, Hannity, and we'll play this clip in a sec, but Hannity kept trying to say, that Biden, the message he kept trying to push is Biden in mental decline, while also saying, but also he's on drugs, and that's why he's going to be great at the debate. In that same, like in the next breath, Hannity kept messing up like very simple things and having his own cognitive moments throughout the episode. He called like a congressman a house or something. Like they were very bizarre cognitive moments that Hannity had.
AOC AOL.
Yeah, he called AOC AOL. And so it's just always funny. It always comes back to haunt them. And I've noticed this too, that instant karma that we have seen with Hannity. There was somebody who spoke at the Trump event the other day. Anytime they try to mock cognitive abilities of other people, they have their own cognitive errors that are so glaring and just so funny and ironic considering the circumstances. Ben.
The whole Fox approach with Biden and their coverage, and it's also such a whiny, petulant, like baby wannabe fascist things to do, is heads I win, tails it was rigged and unfair, and that's why you lose. So no matter what the outcome is, they predetermine it, but it's either we win or you rigged it. And I don't know. I took debate in high school. I ran a Toastmasters club when I was in undergrad, which is a public speaking organization. And I've never heard anybody look at someone who gave a good speech and go, you think they're juiced up? You think they're jacked up? You think that they're taking some performance enhancing drugs for that speech? I've never once heard that being the attribute of someone who debates better than somebody else. But that's how Fox is, as a really good debater. You think that they take some steroids in the.
I don't know what drugs they're even talking about. Like
what are
the debate enhancing
drugs on the list that Dr. Ronnie Jackson oversaw at the White House? And again, some of these drugs I never heard of before until they start bringing it up, and then I looked at the White House list. I go, oh. Provigil, that's for narcolepsy often. I mean, among other uses, everything has multiple uses, but it's for it literally describes the treatment for Donald Trump at the trial. Mm-hmm. Is like what you would take for a Provigil. It's like actually what you get. Anyway, here is Fox pre-spinning a poor Trump debate performance by preemptively accusing President Biden of being on performance enhancing drugs. He can't make this up.
It's the craziest,
craziest things. Play the clip.
obviously, what did they say? Biden was jazzed up or whatever for, jacked up for the State of the Union.
Greg Murphy's the chairman of the Doctors Caucus in the Republican Party. He said he was jacked up.
Yeah, so I'm assuming they'll probably try to, redo that.
I don't know if he had a lot of Red Bull. I don't know if he had Excedrin that has caffeine in it. I don't know if he had a caffeine pill or something, whatever. I don't know. But he should let us know, because apparently it can perform miracles. We've not seen that guy before, and we haven't seen him since his State of the Union. I'm predicting if we see it again, we're likely to see it in 8 days. Now, of course, we do expect a similar jacked up performance at this debate, so be on the lookout for wide-eyed Joe Biden.
Wide-eyed Joe Biden. I thought it was Sleepy Joe, and it's wide-eyed Joe Biden.
He's both sleepy and wide-eyed. He's both sleepy and an international mastermind who's pulling the strings in all the local and federal and state court cases. He's Schrodinger's president, according to Fox News. He's whatever you want him to be at any given time. That is the Hannity way. My favorite form of Fox reporting is when they throw things out. And what did they say about him the last time? That he was jacked up? Is that what they said? That's what you said. What even they said? You're acting like this was some like doctor's report. It was what you pushed last time. Now you're repeating your own BS reporting because you can't handle the fact that your reporting, your fake clips don't line up with the actual human being who you are talking about on a daily basis.
They can never admit that they're wrong. And so when they spend months and months and years saying Sleepy Joe this, Sleepy Joe that, and then President Biden gets in front of the American people at the State of the Unions, and he gives an incredible speech, they don't know what to do. So now they, instead of just saying, oh, we were wrong, he's got a lot of energy, they have to go, he's on drugs. He's on drugs. He's on Adderall.
What a
He's
sick
on
man.
Adderall.
He's on Excedrin.
It is the typical fascist frame, though, of accusing the other of the only way they could possibly beat your strong man is by cheating or by engaging in some misconduct. And that's how they kind of perpetuate a lot of the lies and the propaganda, to try to make the propaganda believable when it actually contradicts the facts that their followers see before their eyes. Oh, look, that's why he's doing better. It must be on drugs and part of a broader conspiracy. By the way, I looked at Provigil. It's most often used to treat excessive sleepiness caused by narcolepsy, obstructive sleep apnea, and shift work. And if you go and look at some of the side effects of Provigil, it includes headaches, more trouble sleeping, which would seem to be counterintuitive. It includes dry mouth, runny nose, diarrhea, upset stomach, back pain, and chest pain. So I'm just saying that Dr. Ronnie Jackson, or as Trump calls him, Dr. Ronnie Johnson, keeps bringing that one up over again.
You think Trump sniffles there, Ben, are starting to make a little bit more sense there with that runny nose.
Also the dry mouth, like when he says something like United Church, and he almost seems like his teeth are about to fall out of his mouth. He has those moments when he had that kind of weird spitting moment the other day that I apologize for playing.
People didn't like that. Yeah, we can't.
People definitely hated it.
I don't think we should. We made like TikToks with that. We posted, we made a whole video. Yeah, we probably shouldn't do that one again. It's important for people just to see how unhinged
it's a good day.
I have a new theory about the debates. I don't think it's anything too profound, but real quick, I actually think Donald Trump will debate in the first debate and then have every excuse in the book to not go forward with any more debates. I know there was that second debate that's planned a little bit further out, but I think he'll use that. So you see, it's rigged. They didn't let me do this, and then just spend the rest of his campaign sort of complaining about the CNN host who moderated that one.
Because he's now falling in the polls and he's poll obsessed,
spiraling. Mm-hmm.
That may be one of the only reasons to kind of override his instinct to pull out of the debate and not do it. But I think we should expect them ramping up, accusing CNN of everything, and watch what happens this weekend. Trump is going to amplify all of these lies and conspiracies even more, and we'll start to see that reaching.
By the way, Ben, when you see the Fox poll, when you see what Fox has been pushing on their network, when you see what the other Murdoch properties, like the New York Post has been pushing in their publication, kind of makes sense, right? Their internal polling was showing Donald Trump drastically slipping on a lot of key issues and drastically slipping by aggregate overall. And so they went really, it's always a propaganda network. Don't get me wrong. The entire thing is a propaganda operation. However, they, I think, ramped it up to such extreme lengths where they were cropping clips to try to make Biden look bad and stopping sentences and doing what the media has been referring to as cheap fakes, which are these real videos of Biden that they deceptively edit. They've been doing that, I think, as a reaction to getting word of their internal polling and panicking, quite frankly, as normal news organizations do.
The issue is that's going to catch up with them when he debates, when President Biden goes on the debate stage and the American people see him once again being like, oh, no, he's there. He's with it. Absolutely.
Happens every time.
Let's talk about Trump Media and Technology Group Corp, stock ticker DJT on NASDAQ just briefly. It's dropped nearly 50%, to be specific, 44.71% in the past month alone, now trading at $26.75. So part of this is a story of Trump's failure in business that he's repeatedly had happened to him, or that he's caused rather, over the course of his entire life, bankrupting most of the companies he's touched and destroying the companies that he's been affiliated with and the licensing deals. But also, as our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, says, look, Donald Trump's going to do for America what he's done for Trump Media stock. Make lots of promises, do lots of hyping and promotion, do nothing of substance to make it better, watch it go into the toilet where only he benefits, all while blaming others for his failures. And that's been his track record throughout his life. Look, if you want to
can I say my theory too on the stock? So here's my theory. Let me know what you guys think. I think the stock crashing, of course, we know it's, in our opinion, a fraudulent business, and that there has been they make no revenue and that they lose a ton of money. Of course, those things factor in. But I think this being a meme stock, it being just traded off basically Donald Trump's name for the sake of internet points, I don't know. A lot of people putting money into this thing, Trump people. I think people putting money into it are also putting it in faith that Donald Trump will win the presidency. And this thing only has value if Donald Trump wins. So I think a crash actually correlates, like when Trump says that he affects the polls, I think this is the one way he actually does affect the polls. I think the worse Donald Trump appears to be doing in the election, the worse the stock will do. And it's sort of an indicator in that regard, because without Donald Trump winning, like, this thing is like less than worthless, right? I mean, it's already less than worthless, but this thing tanks. That's one of my theories.
Good theory.
I think that there's something to that theory. I think, though, it's also a lot of smart money involved that really knows with this stock, they've got the best marks. People who are willing to buy the dip and just put their life savings in it. And then you can take them on a ride and pump it up a little bit and make people put the rest of their life save and then bring them down.
Think about it too. If you invested in this thing, for the Trump folks who invested in this, like May 30th or so, put their life savings into this. We've seen a lot of stories about MAGA people, but Trump supporters being like, they've lost half their investment.
It's worse than that, though. And let me explain to you why. Because this is not the first time it's gone through one of these cycles. So a lot of those people could have seen it crashing, sold low,
by the dip,
saw it going back up, and go, "Oh, I got to be a part of this. I shouldn't have sold." And then they got taken again, and they're just getting put through the proverbial. I'm not sure if this is even a proverb. The car, because I'm making up this expression. This kind of car wash of destruction. They're being pushed through it over and over again, and it makes it even worse. I mean, Brett, to your point, I mean, look, there is some semblance of a business that exists. It's the Trump Media Company. They have Truth Social right now as their only main asset, which is Trump posting the Constitution, humping him, or him hugging the Constitution, or Jesus on his shoulders, or QAnon memes, or things in all caps. And then people respond to it by posting their own weirdo memes, like literally like like, no offense to second graders, like petulant second graders and all these like weird scammy advertisers on. I mean, that's the business. But if you look at it, you go, last year they lost $58 million and only made $4 million in revenue. That's like less than a single McDonald's franchise, which certainly doesn't lose that level of money either. McDonald's franchises usually make money, but certainly earns more revenue than Trump Media. And then in the past 3 months alone, the last quarter, they went from losing $58 million last year to losing $327 million last quarter and only earning $750,000. So if you just do the basic math of this company's valuation and you remove the losses, like who would ever remove the losses in conducting a valuation? Obviously, it's material. But just for the sake of our experiment, remove the fact that they've lost $327 million last quarter. Let's just say the only thing that happened was the revenue, and you want to make a projection based on revenue, which you really wouldn't. You would make it based on EBITDA or net profit. You wouldn't base it on revenue. But just say you do a 5 times revenue model. I round up from 750,000 to 1 million. So I say 4 million in revenue a year. I multiply it by 5, let's say, and I ignore the massive amount of losses. It's on pace to lose $1 billion, close to $1 billion. Where's that money going, by the way? Lots of people go, that ain't losing. That money's going somewhere. Follow that money, follow where that money is going. It's an interesting point. We should follow where that money's going because that 327 million is moving somewhere. But let's say then you get at a $20 million valuation. Let's say there's about 200 million outstanding shares. And Brett, one of the things that happened earlier this week is that the shares, not Trump's that were locked up, but some of the other shares for initial investors, not the lockup shares. I want to be clear, that expires in September when Trump can finally sell. But another significant amount of shares were free to be sold. So that substantially diluted other shareholders as well. So assume you have about $200 million shares, assume a 20 million valuation of this thing based on what I think is an inflated valuation. I gave it based on my opinion. That's why if you just do the math, it's less than $1 per share if you just go and do the basic math. So yes, it's a meme stock being held up based on what I think is, the meme qualities, if you will. Meme, also Donald Trump, who goes meme, and the meme, and I just called it meme. But then you have, I think, smart money getting involved and sees the mark and knows how to keep putting them on this path where they keep on losing. And frankly, are tormenting them. But the broader point that Ron Filipkowski made, our editor-in-chief of MeidasTouch Network, I think is the important one. That's how he's run his businesses always. This isn't new, right? There's a reason the Taj Mahal and the casinos declared bankruptcy, the successor interest declared bankruptcy, and Trump Vodka and Trump Mortgage and Trump Jets and the Trump University and all these things went like, this is his pattern that he engages in. And just think about what he did with our economy. Think about the tax cuts that he did, his failed trade wars, tax cuts for the billionaires that couldn't be paid for. Think about the rampant printing of money. Think about the trillions he added to our debt. And then you want to say, what's the cause of inflation? What do you think it comes from? It comes from the fact that he was recklessly printing money and then added 30% more to America's debt and engaged in an inflationary maneuver by engaging in a failed trade war and then mishandled COVID. So where do you think it actually comes from? And what Donald Trump would do if he was in office right now and the Fed was doing things like increasing the interest rates, but now we think that it's going to be cut. But as they did when Biden was in office, what would Trump do? Trump would try to interfere with the Fed increasing interest rates, which was to bring down inflation. He would blame them. He would not do proactive legislation the way President Biden did with the Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. He would act like it didn't exist, or like a miracle, it's all going to go away. He would try to seize the Fed. He would then double down, triple down, quadruple down on trade wars and tariffs and things that are inflationary and not working. And there would be a massive Great Depression. And then he would just blame the other side for it while Americans are suffering. Just think about how simple it should be to run this business, Trump Media. right? And he claims he has 100 million supporters, which we know is a lie, but assume he's got 35 million supporters. It should be very easy to move them to a media company that to make it earn revenue from advertisers, where you could at least be making more than one single McDonald's franchise. If he can't run a single McDonald's franchise, and he loses $300 million in a business and only can earn $750,000 in revenue, think about what he would do to the economy. We don't even have to think about it because we know what he's already done. And that's what was the cause of these things that President Biden had to fix. And then what the arsonists did was they tried to blame the fire department for putting out the fire. And all these 4 years, we had to hear Biden this, Biden that, when Biden was taking potentially very politically difficult decisions, but that were right for the country to put the economy in the place that it is right now. So that's, to me, the story. When we think about the stock tanking, we have to think both micro and macro level of what's going on here. Speaking of which, I want to talk about what's going on, what Trump did in the Wisconsin event that took place this week. And then I want to talk about some other issues that are very important as well. And what's into the economy. And I got to talk about Judge Cannon and the bombshell story from the New York Times that her supervising told her, don't take this case. What are you doing? Recuse yourself. And Judge Cannon refused to do it. We'll talk about that and more. Let's take our last quick break of the show.
Sleep is the foundation of our mental and physical health. When you are sleeping well, you can perform at your best mentally and physically. Introducing Beam's Dream Powder, a science-backed healthy hot cocoa for sleep. If you know me, you know that Dream has been an absolute game changer for my sleep. I drink Beam's Dream Powder each night in order to get my optimal sleep, and I have to say, I would not be recommending this if it didn't actually help me. And today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, their science-backed healthy hot cocoa for sleep with no added sugar. Better sleep has never tasted better. Now available in delicious flavors like chocolate peanut butter, cinnamon cocoa, and sea salt caramel with only 15 calories and 0 grams of sugar. Other sleep aids could cause next day grogginess, but Dreams contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, melatonin, and nano CBD to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. The numbers don't lie. In a clinical study, 93% of participants reported Dream helped them get better sleep. Beam Dream is easy to add to your nighttime routine. Just mix Dream into hot water or milk, froth, and enjoy before bed. Find out why Forbes and New York Times are all talking about Beam and why it's trusted by the world's top athletes and business professionals. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Meidas and use code Meidas at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/MEIDAS and use code Meidas for up to 40% off.
1 in 5 Americans have learn a new language on their bucket list. If that's you, make 2024 the year you finally check it off the list with Babbel. Be a better you in 2024 with Babbel, the science-backed language learning app that actually works. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations. Babbel's tips and tools are approachable, accessible, rooted in real-life situations, and delivered with conversation-based teaching, so you're ready to practice what you've learned in the real world. Babbel's convenient courses have helped me learn real-life conversation skills in a different language. It's so easy to learn how to order food, ask for directions, speak to merchants without having to consult language apps while on vacation. Plus, Babbel's speech recognition technology helps you to improve your pronunciation and accent. Studies from Yale, Michigan State University, and others continue to prove Babbel is better. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Babbel has over 16 million subscriptions sold, plus all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Here's a special limited-time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but it's only for our listeners at babbel.com/Meidas. So get up to 60% off at babbel.com/Meidas. And that's spelled BABBEL.com/Meidas, MEIDAS. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Shout out to our sponsors, y'all. Babbel has been incredible. Brett, I know you've been checking out Babbel lately too. How you liking Babbel, Brett?
Muy bueno, Jordy.
Yes.
Muy bueno.
Absolutely crushing it. Babbel is really fantastic. They're huge partners of ours, and same with Beam. So definitely, guys, check those sponsors out. They're fabulous. The links are in the description. That promo code, for example, for Meidas is actually just for our listeners here. So super cool. Use the links, use the promo codes, and learn a new language. Kick that off your bucket list. How about that?
Well, my wife, Sochi, her family's from Guadalajara. Sochi's first generation. And so I've been using Babbel before marriage. As we've been married, I've been practicing. And so maybe on the next episode or two, I will share with you some of mine. So it's actually very, very important. It's very important for my marriage. So thank you, Babbel, for that. Federal Judge Eileen Cannon, we're learning more about her corruption. One of the things that we're learning is last June, when the Mar-a-Lago document case was assigned to her, the chief judge in the Southern District of Florida, so Judge Cannon, was appointed by Donald Trump to be a federal judge in the Southern District of Florida. For those legal AF watchers, you know that there are different district courts in the states. And so some states have lots of, like a middle district, a Southern District, an Eastern District, Northern District. Some states, depending on their size, have like one type of district. But this is the Southern District of Florida, big state. So they've got multiple different districts. Within the district, there are multiple federal judges. And there's usually a hierarchy there, if you will. There's not usually, there's always a hierarchy. And if you're a new judge like Judge Cannon, you always respect what the senior judges, especially what the chief judge tells you. You don't disobey what a chief judge tells you to do. Now, there's nothing binding. It's not like the chief judge can fire a freshman judge, but it's unprecedented not to listen to what the chief judge tells you. You have life tenure as a federal judge. The Constitution and the norms and the traditions that have been built in our country around federal judges is that you're not going to have judges like Judge Eileen Cannon. And the thought is that when they get nominated and then appointed, and then there's a whole confirmation process that vets out bad judges. And because of life tenure, they're supposed to not be corrupt. But with Judge Cannon and some of these MAGA judges, it's the exact opposite. So the chief judge in the Southern District of Florida, Judge Cecilia Altanaga, along with another more senior federal judge, according to this New York Times article, went to Judge Cannon and said, you can't take this case. One, you were appointed by Donald Trump, so you should recuse yourself on that basis. And two, you botched the other case that was assigned to you, and these cases are randomly assigned. I know lots of people don't believe that it's a random assignment, that she gets the Trump case twice, but it's all supposed to be a random assignment, and there's no data that exists that suggests that it was not another random assignment. But in any event, it was randomly assigned to her the first time when the search warrant was executed, and she asserted equitable jurisdiction back in 2022, which no judge had ever done before in history. And she specifically said that Donald Trump should get extra privileges because of his position. And she was overturned by a very conservative Court of Appeals, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, in two very scathing orders. So the chief judge, when this case was assigned to her again, was like, don't take this case. Withdraw, recuse yourself. And another judge said, this is a bad look for us all. And Cannon refused. And Cannon says, no, I'm holding on to the case. Also, here's the thing about it too. Judge Cannon's court in Fort Pierce didn't even have the necessary facilities to handle cases involving classified information. Judge Cannon made the taxpayers, we the people, had to pay for the government to build a sensitive compartmented information facility, a SCIF, in Fort Pierce, because she refused to give up the case to a judge in Miami who can handle it, or she refused to travel to Miami. So huge amounts of money had to be spent to build a skiff so she could keep this case. And of course, we know all the awful orders that she's made, but all of those orders that she's made have been paperless orders or orders without prejudice, so she could avoid Special Counsel Jack Smith appealing a final order. So she's refused even to this day to make a final order. Think about that. But again, it's unheard of for a judge like that to just totally not listen to the guidance of a chief judge. By the way, the chief judge, Altanaga, a George W. Bush appointee. So this was a mainstream kind of Republican judge telling Cannon, you do not take this case. And Cannon refused to listen. Just want to show you this one clip from Trump's Wisconsin event before throwing it to Brett on the economy and other topics, because think about one of the first questions that I think are going to be asked to Donald Trump at the debate. Will you concede that you lost the 2020 election? Think about that question. Will you concede that you lost in 2020? And how do you think Donald Trump's going to answer that in the debate? Just think about that question alone. Well, when Donald Trump went to Wisconsin, he claimed to the audience in Wisconsin, it's now 2024. And what he's talking to them about is claiming that he won in 2020 when he lost in 2020. So let me just show you what he's saying in Wisconsin. Let's play that clip.
Do you remember in 2016 we won? And then we did much better here in 2020, but lots of things happened. And then in the end, we won, but by that time, it was a little late.
Think about that question. When he's asked, so will you look the American people in the eye and that's the question. They're going to ask him that question, right? Will you look the American people in the eye and admit once and for all that you lost the 2020 election? And Trump's going to say he didn't. He's going to claim that it was rigged, and you're going to have that happening. Just think about that alone. Then when they ask him about his support for the J6 insurrectionists, pardoning Proud Boys, remember when it was stand back, stand by? Now he's like, stand by me. Like, let's do it together. Like, he's all in on the Proud Boys. Think about when they ask about Roe v. Wade, what Trump's going to say, how he wants to expand the Dobbs decision, allowing states to monitor women's pregnancies, monitor women's periods, lock up women, lock up doctors. As long as states have the policy, he's good with that. Just think about the types of questions he's gonna be asked. And look, I think President Biden's got a good record to run on. I know that MAGA wants to make us all feel like we're living in the American carnage that was the Trump administration. But look, I'm not saying that things are perfect, and I'm not saying that there aren't things that need to be addressed. There's a lot of things that need to be addressed, but by far and away, America's like leading the world in economic growth, leading the world in combating inflation, leading the world in oil production, leading the world on mostly every key metric. Brett, take it away on the economy. I want to talk about climate too. I'd love for you to talk about climate.
Yeah, definitely. Well, a lot of good indicators for the economy. Garzarelli Capital says, quote, listen to this, the U.S. is experiencing the best economic and employment situation in over 50 years. And of course, we're all seeing that stocks are at all-time highs. AAA says that they anticipate this July 4th week to be the busiest travel week ever, with an additional 5.7 million people traveling compared to 2019. We saw the S&P 500 hit another record high. The NASDAQ has been up for 8 straight days, the longest of the year. And we're also seeing companies begin to slash their prices. We're seeing it with companies like McDonald's. We're seeing it with companies like Target, because ultimately what a lot of this inflation is, and what a lot of folks have been saying it is corporate greed. I mean, yes, it certainly has a lot to do with supply chain issues and COVID and a lot of Trump's policies and all that, but it also has to do with corporations charging more for their products and taking advantage of folks. But I think now, due to pressure from President Biden, due to pressure from consumers, you're starting to see these corporations begin to lower their prices in a big way. I saw online, they're calling it the fast food price war now, where McDonald's has their new value $5 meal, and the other fast food places are coming out with their lower priced meals to try to compete with one another. But ultimately that's a good thing. Meanwhile, we're seeing Trump literally threaten business leaders. I don't know if you guys caught this, but Trump said if any business leader doesn't support him, they deserve to be fired. They should be fired. They need to support him 100% or be fired. Sounds a little fashy to me, as one may say. And Ben, you were bringing up like the other day not the other day, a few minutes ago, the judge who was speaking with Judge Cannon, the Bush appointee, and how that was a more mainstream Bush judge. Well, let me show you a mainstream McCain economic advisor speaking about Donald Trump's economic plans. Here you see Mark Zandi, who's John McCain's top economic advisor in 2008, saying that if Republicans were to sweep the 2024 election and implement Donald Trump's plans, it would increase both inflation and employment. So for all the folks who, are concerned about inflation, Donald Trump's policies are the most inflationary policies that there are. And if you look at the track record, you actually see inflation coming down, inflation at 0% month over month. Yes, of course, it is an issue, but we're seeing it be dealt with. And once again, you see what former President Barack Obama handed Donald Trump, a country that was in pretty good shape, and it continued to be in pretty good shape until Trump messed it up. Trump handed off an economy that was in crisis, in absolute disaster, and then did not even assist one bit with the transition. And so Biden had to deal with digging us out of that hole that Trump got us in. So, ultimately you can't be suckered into jumping back in that hole with Donald Trump. And even mainstream Republican economic advisors like John McCain's are speaking out and saying that Trump would be an utter disaster. Something that we've been pushing for a lot here, and I know a lot of you have mentioned it, is, speaking about the climate. The climate has to be one of the single most important issues that we have. It obviously affects us all. And honestly, to me, and I saw Mark Cuban post about this the other day, it should quite frankly be a single issue voter for folks. Mark Cuban the other day posted online that he would never vote for a candidate whatsoever who did not believe in climate change. And that's a thing that's very kind of unusual for American politics. Like, that's not really a thing when you go to other modern countries, that you have a mainstream political party that doesn't believe in climate change or that things affect the climate. It's just an unusual thing in this country. It's unique to this Republican Party. Now, there was a program that we spoke about that the Biden administration implemented called the American Climate Corps, which I think is, quite frankly, one of the coolest kind of government initiatives that are out there. And I really don't think it gets enough press. I think this should be talked about so much more. It's the program. It places young people in clean energy programs, programs about conservation, climate resilience. And there's the federal agency, it's called AmeriCorps, who oversees the program. They now have the numbers in on folks who have signed up for the Climate Corps program. There will be more than 9,000 members put in these roles, and they're paid jobs working on climate projects. More than 9,000 people will be in these roles by the end of the month, and they're expecting that to go up to 20,000 young people working in a variety of these paid positions through federal, state, and local partnerships across the entire country. They have a limited amount of roles, so you should check them out on their website. It's acc.gov. You can get a job and be helping the economy. They have these paid employment terms. They're like 2 years to over a year. It's all due to the Inflation Reduction Act and money from the fiscal 2024 budget. And you could, be helping with wildland firefighters to urban farm fellows, traditional ecological knowledge stewards, improving food security in urban areas, conserving energy. They have a lot of different things that you could sign up for, and you get paid for it. And I think it's a really cool initiative that, to me, reminds me of the New Deal and some of the programs that we look back on in history with such deference. And I feel like this is one of those programs that is so just under talked about, or like people don't speak about it nearly enough. And I feel like in years from now, we will look back on this program and say, wow, that was a pretty incredible idea. And it's providing really great opportunities for folks. Other climate news, big climate endorsement for President Biden. A union representing employees with the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, endorsed President Biden's re-election Tuesday. Why is this big news? Well, it's their first ever political endorsement First ever. The union is called the American Federation of Government Employees. Council 238, they represent 8,000 EPA employees, engineers, lawyers, inspectors, putting their vote of confidence in President Biden. And I mean, they should. He's the only person who actually believes in helping the environment whatsoever. Here's what the president of the union said. AFGE Council 238 is proud to issue its first ever political endorsement to President Joe Biden, a leader who supports and values the work of federal employees who are working tirelessly to face the climate emergency. Donald Trump's dangerous rhetoric around climate change and his comments signaling his intent to gut environmental agencies tell us that a second term would be catastrophic. And like all things we say, these aren't hypotheticals. When Donald Trump was in office, he rolled back environmental regulations. When Biden was in there, he made the most climate investments out of any president in history. Trump, even recently, there was that bombshell report that just gets talked about now for like a day barely, and then like people forget about it, where he was virtually bribing oil executives by saying, if you donate to me all this money, then I will continue to roll back every bit of progress that we have made on the environment. So these are important things. You know, the climate is a big issue. I hope, guys, that we could be highlighting climate issues on the show more. I know we have a lot to talk about, but this to me is one of the single most important topics that we could be calling attention to. So I think we have a platform. Let's try to use it.
I think when Mark Cuban said that you should be a single issue voter on the issue of climate, because if you don't believe in climate change, then to me that speaks volumes, not just about the climate, but everything. It speaks volumes about everything. You're just going to ignore data.
We could transfer that to the way Trump handled COVID, right? Same thing. Don't believe in it. Nope, didn't happen. It's a hoax. Donald Trump calls everything a hoax. I mean, it's the same pattern of behavior. And if you're going to ignore data, if you're going to ignore reality, then you're not equipped to confront reality. I guess it's easier for dictators, I guess, to pretend that reality doesn't exist and to try to have Fox cover for you and to try to just present your own version of it. But ultimately, that's going to catch up to you. Reality catches up quick. You see that happening to Putin's Russia right now with these banks on the verge of collapse with all the issues that they're having. You see Putin desperate. That's the end result of trying to create your own reality. It will ultimately catch up with you, and it will screw over the people who need the most help.
Jordy, sorry I interrupted you.
No, I was just saying to Brett that I agree that we should definitely start talking about climate more just on the podcast. I really, really appreciated that breakdown, Brett. When I saw that on the outline today, I was pretty stoked that you brought that in.
Yeah,
I want to remind everybody about the new YouTube channel we launched as affiliated with the MeidasTouch Network. It is Michael Cohen's YouTube channel, and he's on his way to 100,000 subs. I think he hit 10,000 subs faster than I think I've ever seen almost any YouTube channel, especially that deals with the news. I mean, so it's youtube.com/@the-Michael-Cohen-Show, youtube.com/@ The Michael Cohen Show. I may have said before @Michael Cohen Show. If I said it incorrectly,
I think you said it correctly.
Oh, nice. YouTube. I surprise myself sometimes. youtube.com/@The-Michael Cohen Show. I want to thank all of our sponsors today. Thank you to the sponsors. We really appreciate your support. I want to remind everybody we'll do an after show here. Brett, you know what I want to talk about in the after show? I want to talk about that incredible viral video that you made showing all the times Donald Trump didn't remember anybody's name. And you showed it was an incredible. I want you to bring us through your creative process, because I mean this sincerely. Brett's probably one of the most talented technical and creative editors in the world from a technical. Brett's a musician, so he could play almost any instrument, and that's kind of what he brings to his editing.
He's an artist. I mean, he's an artist with his editing.
He's like, guys, stop it.
Anyway, I want to thank everybody for watching. Make sure, if everybody can who's watching this, also subscribe to the MeidasTouch audio podcast.
Yes.
Because it really goes a long way to help. If everybody who was in here tonight, and there was a lot of you, subscribe to the audio podcast, It'll help those audio numbers as well. And the audio numbers help us on the Apple charts. Then more people can see us. And
we don't just post, to be clear, we're not just posting this same long form show that you hear here. We also do daily hits that we're posting to the audio feeds as well. So if you're on the go and you can't get to YouTube super quickly, but you could do, something on the run with the audio pod, check it out because you'll get all your updates there. You never have to miss a beat.
So thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you. We'll see you on Patreon. We'll see you through the hot takes that we do throughout the day. Michael Cohen, we'll see you on his new YouTube channel. Don't worry, he's still going to be doing all his shows here on our YouTube channel. We're just expanding the Michael Cohen offerings. That and more. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a wonderful one. Jordy, take it away.
Shout out to the Midas Mighty!
The Midas Mighty standing strong against the fascists. We sing our song. We will get it right whenever.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstallenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Midas Mighty. Let's use our power well.